صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى الله على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Assalamu alaikum. So inshallah we're going to continue the Shamail, and we're in chapter 2. So if you want to put the title as the seal of prophethood. The seal of prophethood is a sign or a description that's ascribed to Prophet ﷺ, and because it is something that described in the ancient scriptures as well, and it was like you could say a sign that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was the final prophet. So the first of these, Al-Sa'ib ibn al-Yazid said, my maternal aunt took me to the Prophet ﷺ, and she said, O Messenger of Allah, my nephew is in pain. So he ﷺ wiped over my head and prayed for me to be blessed, and he performed wudu, and I drank from his wudu water. Then as I stood behind his back, I saw the seal between his shoulders, and lo and behold, it was like a button on a curtain canopy. So Al-Sa'ib, he was a young boy at that time. He went with his maternal aunt, which like a khala, you could say, his mom's sister. And he was in pain, some kind of pain, or he had some kind of illness. As the Prophet he wiped over his head, and then he performed wudu, and he mentioned that either the water that was left over after wudu, or the water that was collected from a person when he performed the wudu in a bowl, he drank the water, and he mentioned that he became well after that. So this is a sunnah that we should perform. I mean, it is a sunnah that in the past, right, they would like a jug or something like that with water in it, and they would perform wudu with the water, and any leftover water in the jug, people would use it to drink it. Obviously, we can't do it nowadays because we normally use a tap to perform wudu. But if you ever have the opportunity to perform wudu using a bottle or a jug of water, then any leftover water you should drink it. It is sunnah to do so. So this young boy, he mentions that he was standing behind Prophet ﷺ back, and he saw the seal of the prophethood on the shoulder of the Prophet ﷺ. Jabir ibn Samura said, I saw the seal between the shoulders of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ as a protruding piece of red flesh, similar to a pigeon's egg. Rumaytha said, I heard the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and had I wished to kiss the seal between his shoulders due to being close to him, I could have done so. And what she heard was, say about Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, on the day he passed away, the throne of all merciful shook for him. So Rumaytha, she was a young girl at that time, and she was close to the Prophet ﷺ, and this incident happened after the battle of Khandaq. Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, he was one of the Ansari from Medina. He was like one of their leaders of the tribes there, and he was a great Sahaba, and he died from a wound. He was martyred after that, and it is mentioned that the throne of Allah SWT shook for him, and this is like a metaphorical statement. We said that we don't actually believe that the actual throne shook or anything like that. That's something we don't believe that. Okay, these are all words to describe an incident. It's a metaphorical explanation. So she said that she was so close that if she wanted to, she could have kissed the seal between the shoulders. So it was showing how, and this goes to show that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you could see how children and people were so close to the Prophet ﷺ that they were able to be so near him, and they remember things very fondly as well. So the children love being around Prophet ﷺ. Ilba ibn Ahmar al-Yashkuri said, Abu Zayd Amr ibn al-Akhtab al-Ansari said, the Messenger of Allah said to me, O Abu Zayd, come close to me and wipe my back. So I wiped his back, and my fingers touched the seal, and I asked, what was this? What was there? And so the person asked, what was it? And he replied, it was a seal. Buraidah said, when Salman al-Farsi arrived in Medina, he came to the Messenger of Allah with a serving mat on which there were ripe dates, and laid it before the Messenger of Allah, and he said, O Salman, what is this? He replied, charity for you and your companions. Pick it up, for we do not eat charity. He replied, so he picked it up, and the following day he came again with the same thing, and he laid it before the Messenger of Allah, and he inquired, what is this, O Salman? He replied, a gift for you. The Messenger of Allah told his companions, extend your hands, and then he looked towards the seal that was on the Messenger of Allah's back, whereupon he came to believe in him to be a prophet. He, Salman, was owned by the Jews, and so the Messenger of Allah purchased him for such and such an amount of dirhams, in addition to planting for them some date palms on which Salman would work until they were bearing fruit. Then the Messenger of Allah planted all the date palms with the exception of one which was planted by Umar. Consequently, that when the date palms were bearing fruits in that year, but a particular date palm was not. And the Messenger of Allah remarked, what is wrong with this date palm? Umar replied, O Messenger of Allah, I planted it. Thereupon the Messenger of Allah uprooted it and replanted it, and thus it bore fruit that year. So this is a very long hadith. I'm not going to go too much into it. Salman al-Farsi, he was from Persia, and what happened was he was from a very noble family. His father was like a Zoroastrian priest, you could say, and he came across Salman al-Farsi. He came across some Christians at one time, and then he had a conversation with them, and then he left his family and he became a Christian, and then he went to Syria and he lived with a Christian monk, studying about Christianity and about scriptures. And when the monk passed away, he told him to go to another one, and then when he passed away, he told him to go to another one, until finally the final monk that he stayed with, who told him that there wasn't anybody else there who was very learned that he can go to, but he did say to him that in our scriptures is mentioned that a final messenger is coming and he will be from this place. And then what happened was Salman al-Farsi, he was captured by some bandits and he was sold as a slave, and he ended up being in a place called Medina, basically, as a slave. And his owner was a Yahudi, like a Jew, basically. And then when Prophet when he migrated to Medina from Mecca, and when Salman al-Farsi, he heard that there's a man who was claiming to be a prophet, so he came and he observed the Prophet to see if that was the case. And then he brought him a plate of ripe dates. And initially when he gave the dates, he said, this is a charity, like a sadaqah for you. Take it back, because the prophets, they're not allowed to take any charity, any sadaqah. So Salman al-Farsi came back the following day, and then again he presented a plate of dates. And then Prophet asked him, what is this? He said, this is a gift for you. So the Prophet, he took the gift and he shared it with his companions. And then Salman al-Farsi, he saw the seal of the Prophethood behind on his shoulder of the Prophet ﷺ. Then Prophet, he purchased Salman from the Jew and he freed him. And one of the conditions of purchasing Salman was that they would pay the amount in gold. It was like the size of an egg. And also the condition was that Salman al-Farsi, he would work on the land, and he would give 100 palm trees with fruits. So Prophet ﷺ, he planted 99 of them, and within that year the trees grew and they all gave fruits, dates, but one of them didn't. And then when Prophet he inquired what's happened, and then Umar he said that, O Messenger of Allah, I planted that tree. So the Prophet he took it out and he replanted it again, and that tree, the palm tree, bore some fruit again. So Salman was freed and he became a Muslim. And inshallah, I think if you have the chance, then you should read about Salman al-Farsi. It's a great story to read about. Maybe if you have time, we'll go through it sometime. The next hadith is from Abu Nadra. He said, I asked Abu Sa'id al-Khudri about the Messenger of Allah seal, and he replied, it was protruding piece of flesh on his upper back. Abdullah ibn Sarjis said, I came to the Messenger of Allah as he was amongst a group of his companions. I turned around like this from behind his back. He realized that what I wanted to do, so he threw his robe off his back, and I behold the location of the seal on his shoulder, similar to a clenched palm, around which were beauty spots, as if they were warts. I then returned to face him and said, oh, may Allah forgive you, O Messenger of Allah, and you too, he replied. When the people asked, did the Messenger of Allah say forgiveness for you? He replied, yes, and for you too. And then he recited the following verse, and ask forgiveness for your dhanb and for the believing men and women. So this is talking about this individual who came, and he was behind the Prophet, and he was just trying to like you could say, trying to see something like. And then Prophet, he realized that what he was trying to do, so he took his robe off from his back and he exposed his back. And the individual, Abdullah ibn Sarjis, he said, I saw the seal of the Prophethood behind his back. And he mentioned that his location was on his shoulder, and it's mentioned towards his left shoulder. And he said that the Prophet made dua for him and asked for his forgiveness. So a couple of things. The seal of the Prophethood, it was on the Prophet, it was on his back, on his it was more towards his left shoulder, and it's mentioned it was the size of a pigeon's egg. It was like a protruding flesh, so it was like just a slightly raised flesh, and different people describe it in a different way. Some said there was some hair there as well, but one of the key things to understand that it wasn't something that was ugly in any way. It just enhanced the Prophet ﷺ's beauty, or some you could say, and it wasn't something that was bad in any way. And it was a sign that the Prophet ﷺ, he was the final prophet, and it's something because it was something that mentioned or described in the previous scriptures. So that's why you find that a lot of learned either rabbis or priests or monks or those who studied from them, when they came to meet Prophet ﷺ, this is something they would try and look out for, because they knew that would be on the Prophet ﷺ. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he would show it to them. And the other thing to understand that in a way seal, that means that the seal of the Prophethood means, right, that there will be no other or no further messenger or prophets coming after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if anybody else comes after his time claiming to be a prophet or anything like that, then that's the total heresy. We completely disbelieve that. So that's why there are certain groups or people out there in certain part of the world who may appear to be Muslim from outward appearance, but in their belief they're not considered to be Muslim, because they consider people who they follow or the founding of their groups, right, to be their prophet or a messenger, and that's a complete and utter disbelief. So we don't in any way believe in them, but believe them to be Muslim. So if you ever come across them, stay away from them. And it doesn't mean that, one thing to understand and realize, that we don't use foul languages, we don't use violence or anything like that. Hopefully may Allah SWT protect us from the evil and the misguidance and deviations out there, and may Allah SWT protect our children from misguidance, from evil and fitness out there, and may Allah SWT put the love of the Prophet into our heart, and to follow in his example, following the footsteps of the Sahabas and the Tabi'ins and all the pious scholars and the righteous ulamas. Assalamu alaikum.